Hey guys, what's happening? So now we are finally getting into Three Jokers, the long awaited story. And we were teased a little bit with it like at the beginning of DC Rebirth, like with the one shot and the button tying everything into Doomsday Clock, which then took the anticipation through the roof, and we've kind of been hovering over the roof ever since. But at this point, getting into Three Jokers, I want to take my time this go around and better explain my idea of, quote, the better Joker, which essentially is the same concept I was talking about earlier, but a couple people had an issue with the wording, so here we are. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so initially where we jump in with Bruce heading back to the Wayne Manor, and with doing so, like he's in bad shape. Like he's hit tombstones on the way in, he's left a trail of blood, but even with us seeing this, we're quickly reminded like this is just another night for Bruce. Because in a lot of cases, he goes out, he fights like 20 goons, and then when he gets home, Alfred stitches him up. And in this particular case, Alfred asks him like, what was it this time? And Bruce is like, he was stabbed with an umbrella. But also what is like super insane, and I'm so glad that Jason Fabok once again teamed up with Jeff Johns for this. But what is super insane is like with every scar that Bruce has, like collectively they tell a number of storylines of what he's been through, of who he's faced, whether it's the abrasion going straight down his back from Nightfall when Bane broke his back, or even the scars on his chest that he got from Selina, which at a glance to the memory it calls back, it likely was an earlier encounter along the time of like the Long Halloween. And in the case of all these scars, like they're like an accumulation of a number of hits that Bruce has taken that span over the course of at least 2 decades, and a number of which have come from different situations and different villains. But when Bruce thinks back on a number of these scars, like the Joker comes up numerous times. And this could be interpreted a number of ways, because on one hand, it's possible these are different Jokers who may have caught him slipping in different situations, which it could be, and I feel like it's kind of meant to seem like that way on the surface, with the event being called Three Jokers and us seeing 3 Jokers leave a scar on Bruce that'll last for life. But on the flip side, I want to take it as a bit more than just the face value, because for a number of these scars, these are things that happened to Bruce to where after they did, like if he could help it, he just didn't let them happen again. Like Bane breaking his back, for example. He was like, one time is enough. And the razor sharp Joker cards, like that's another story, because I've seen him hit with those a few times. And for Bruce, that's probably got to be the worst. Like being hit more than one time with something you know is gonna hurt. But all in all with Bruce, there's a couple things that I feel like we really need to focus on. And for one, there's the accumulation of these scars that tell a story. But then on top of that, we're also told that there are some scars that are not visible, that just will not heal, which for Bruce, as we know, is the case of his parents being killed. But this concept I want you guys to kind of keep in the back of your mind, because this is what I believe is like the basis of the better Joker, and we will get more into that in just a little bit. But it's from here where Bruce and Alfred, they hear a report of the last members of the Moxon family being murdered, to whom years ago that family was whom to believe orchestrated the death of Bruce's parents, all the way up until Joe Chill confessed that he acted alone. And when Bruce hears this, immediately he makes his way out there. But after this, we then jump over to Barbara Gordon, and she is going in on the treadmill. But with us seeing this, it's likely because she's suffering from RLS, or restless leg syndrome, which is likely a side effect of her having the chip placed in her back that allowed her to walk again after being shot by the Joker in The Killing Joke. And if I'm not mistaken, like restless leg syndrome, like it's not curable, like it's treatable, but even with that, there's no definite cure, which just shows us like in the case of Barbara, even though she's capable of walking again, she still deals with this constant condition, almost as if it's an invisible scar that won't heal. But while she's at the gym, she hears this news about a comedian who the Joker had killed during a live stream, and as the news went on, she turned up the treadmill, all the way up to the point where it maxed out and then burnt out, which once again, signs of that invisible scar. But then in addition to that, when she hits the showers, she also has the physical scars, which always remind her of what had happened. But then from there, we then go to Jason Todd, who at this point, he's interrogating some of the Joker's goons, but even at the same time, like while he's telling them to talk, he's also closing their windpipes and knocking out their teeth. But even while this is happening, he's getting updates through his helmet that are telling him about another Joker incident that's contradicting the earlier reports of the Joker appearing at other places at the same time. But in the middle of this, when Jason's helmet gets knocked off, and one of the goons is like, no more helmet, and pretty much signaling that they're gonna go for the head, and it's here where Jason's mind immediately snaps back to the moment of the Joker beating him in the head repeatedly over and over and over again. And really it's here where Jason just brutalizes these dudes like a man possessed, or better yet like a chiropractor who just didn't read the instructions on joints and ligaments and which way they supposed to go and which way they not supposed to go. But even with beating these dudes senseless, like for Jason, he didn't need to do this. Like, he figured they wouldn't know the information he needed, but he had went through with this anyway. But it's also like with getting your classic Jason Todd moment like this. Like in his case, aside from like the physical scars on his face and on the top of his head, you also have two other invisible scars that follow him around that come out from time to time. With the first being the obvious how much he hates the Joker and any goon associated with the Joker, but then on top of that you have another which hasn't been visited in a long time, and that second one is Jason's desperate desire to never feel defenseless, hopeless, or helpless ever again. But in the event that he does, it takes him on that brutal side. But after this, when we go over to Ace Chemicals, at this crime scene we more or less have like a reenactment of the Joker's origin. But also much like the other cases, this was set up very much like the Joker wanted them to see this. And while they're here, Commissioner Gordon and the other detectives and the other officers, their question at this point is like, which one of these cases or scenarios is the actual Joker? Which for the most part right now is the leading question. But Batman picks up pretty quickly that none of these guys are the Joker, and that they were more likely three homeless guys who the Joker had placed here to stage this reenactment. But while Bruce is conversing with Barbara, they quickly come to the conclusion that in this crime scene, this Joker lookalike and his accomplices, who are also lookalikes, with the other two looking like the guys who were with the Joker when this actually happened. But at this point, Batman had figured out that they're all just a distraction from the truck that actually left with stolen chemicals, which also was full of the same chemicals that created the Joker in the first place. But also while they're here, they find out that the one out of the three who actually posed as the Joker, that he's still alive. So they rush him into an ambulance, and from there, Batman and Batgirl, they agree to escort the ambulance to the hospital, with it being on the way to the next crime scene, which in this case would be the comedian who was murdered, who Barbara had heard about in the gym. But when we go back inside the ambulance and check on old boy, he's getting choked out by Jason Todd, which causes the ambulance to swerve, which immediately gets Bruce's and Barbara's attention. And when Batman goes to check it out, like, he very much calls Jason Todd on the same thing that we had just talked about. Because when he kicks in the door and he sees Jason strangling this dude who has been drugged, and he asks Jason what is he doing, and Jason's like, I'm interrogating him. And Bruce tells him that he just needs to stop because he's not going to get any answers out of this dude whose mind is gone off of Joker toxin. And after this, Barbara, she immediately blows out the tires on the ambulance, and she pretty much gets on Jason for the same thing, because she believes this dude was a victim and Jason was just taking out his rage on someone who couldn't give him answers anyway. But then Jason lets her know like he had done his homework, and these dudes weren't just victims, they had a rap sheet, and the dude that he was choking out, he had a history of domestic violence, and he tells her that she's lucky he ain't just throw him out the truck, which would have been an interesting form of interrogation, like throwing him out the truck and being like, roll in the direction where the Joker's at, or bounce twice if you can understand me. Jason Todd, let me tell you. But then after this, we then go to a house in the woods where we see the Joker who just left Ace Chemicals has arrived to. And when he goes to the door, it's answered by the Joker from The Killing Joke, who's also referenced as your comedian Joker. And the one who arrived is your classic or clown Joker. And when the clown Joker arrives there, like there's a bit of banter between the two. Like the clown, he tells a comedian that he has that same shirt, and the comedian kind of comes back like, look who's taking credit for things they didn't do. Which is one of those statements that could be nothing or it could be something later on. But it's also here we find out that they're in the company of your criminal Joker, who the comedian says is the leader of the three, because somebody has to be. But when they then tell him that they had the chemicals and they had some fun, and then they ask him what's the next move, he then tells them now is when they do what they always do, which is make a better Joker. But from there, the criminal Joker then tells the two that one of them will set up the factory while the other helps him with a casting call. But at this point, we're not shown specifically which one went where, which really has me thinking early on that the criminal Joker, that his idea of quote a better Joker, it has something to do with the three Jokers posing as one another for some reason. But after this, we then find that Bruce, Barbara, and Jason have made their way to the Gotham Aquarium, which initially was off of a lead where Jason had discovered some chemicals on one of Joker's thugs. But when they got there, they quickly found out that this lead had some form of validity because there was Joker toxin all in the water with Jokerized piranhas and sharks. Like something fishy was going on here. But right after this, they're met with the arrival of Gagsworth, who's like the Joker's first sidekick, or at least his sidekick before Harley Quinn, but he is like a deep cut from the 1940s and he did not age well. But for whatever reason, when Gagsworth and the others, they then attack Bruce, Jason, and Barbara, Gagsworth is adamant about going after Jason Todd, and at one point he tases Jason, and after shots firing and missing, they crack the glass where the shark is at. But then when Gagsworth is standing in front of the glass, Jason's like, you know what, it'd be a shame if that glass broke with you standing right there. So with that being the case, Jason shoots the glass out and Gaggy's pretty much assed out. But after this, when Jason believes for everything to be over, the Joker then comes through with a bowl of Jokerized piranha, throws them on Bruce, and then smashes Jason over the head with the bowl. But even with doing this, he's taken down pretty quickly. And with them knocked out, Barbara's trying to ask Bruce, like, is this him? Like, is this really over? Do we have the real Joker? And though Bruce doesn't really give a direct answer, he more or less says it seems to be as much, and then Jason Todd just comes out of nowhere, kicking the Joker in the ribs while he's down. But even with doing so, Jason, like, he's pissed because he tells them, like, he could have done this without their help. Or better yet, I'd even go as far to say that Jason doesn't want to believe that he needed help while being attacked by the Joker, which once again is those invisible scars showing. But at this point, Batman then gets a call from Gordon, who tells him he got eyes on another Joker. So from there, Batman goes to check it out, and he tells Barbara and Jason to secure this Joker and wait for the Arkham transport to come pick him up. And so now this is where we get down to the what I meant with the what I'm talking about. Because now at this point, with the two of them alone with the Joker, and initially they're like taking a closer look and going through his pockets just to make sure that this is actually the Joker. And never mind there actually being three, like they're not even aware of that. But while they're doing this, the Joker makes the remark of like, who in their right mind would take on the moniker of the person that killed them, with the Joker referring to that he effectively killed Robin. And Jason responds like he took it on so that he would show that he was owning what happened to him, and even doing so initially with the idea that one day that he would be the end of the Joker. And the Joker just teases him like, oh yeah, like you had so much strength and tenacity, that's why you did it. And when he says this, like you just look up and Jason got the gun pointed at him like he's ready to squeeze. But it's here where the Joker lets him know that to the Joker, Jason Todd is nobody, and that he only beat Jason to the brink of death just to get Batman's attention. And then he starts quoting like verbatim the words Jason was saying when he was crying for his life, begging the Joker to stop and pleading with the Joker that if he let him live, that Jason would do anything that he says, which is clearly the Joker digging into these wounds that never healed. And from there, he then tells Jason Todd, like with the death of Robin and him becoming the Red Hood, that he's essentially come full circle and he's become the Joker's Robin. And with him doing this, it really feels like this whole setup at the Aquarium, like it's really just been targeted at Jason Todd, with Jason finding the clues that led them here in the first place. But then also on top of that, when they arrived, only Barbara and Bruce had history with the Aquarium, because for Barbara, her father used to take her there, and in the case of Bruce, well, his parents, they built it. But with the two of them having history here and Jason not having history, it kind of left him out. And Bruce noticed this earlier when Jason was complaining about something as little as the seat being too small. But then on top of that, you have Gaggy, who shows up, who's the first sidekick of the Joker. And really, like, you just take one look at Gaggy and then somebody calls you a sidekick of the Joker, you just take a look at that and it's like, hey man, what you just say? Like, I know you ain't just calling me Gaggy 2.0. And it's like, you either saying that or you calling me Charlie Quinn. Like, which one is it? But it's here where Barbara's like, okay, this guy, he's finna dome this dude. But then when she tells Jason to put down the gun and he doesn't, and then after that she throws a batarang in order to stop him, but then she misses. And as soon as she misses, Jason squeezes and he kills the Joker. And when Barbara looks at Jason like, what did you do? He tells her like, you wanted this too, because when was the last time that you missed? And it's crazy seeing this because we were just talking about this in the last Batgirl video in Joker War, because Barbara doesn't miss. Like, she's a surgeon with the batarangs. So with her missing here, without a doubt, there's a part of her that wanted Jason to do this. And when she looks at the batarang, she looks at the blood on the floor, she looks at Jason, and she cannot deny that she wanted Jason to shoot the Joker. And it literally brings her to tears and she walks away. But here's the thing, because I would argue that all of this is just part of the criminal Joker's plan and his idea of the better Joker, as well as whatever he had planned with the casting call, that all of this has to play into the invisible wounds of Jason, Barbara, and Bruce, and the Joker finding a way to show them that the three of them are just as unhinged as the three of him. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the Patreons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below to where you can head to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let me know what you think if I'm looking too far deep into the better Joker, and that ultimately being a reflection of Bruce, Barbara, and Jason, or even the comedian Joker hinting on another Joker taking credit for something they didn't do, which again feels like the Joker's possibly trading places. But once again, for this one, I did want to come back and fix the audio, and I made sure this time I said Joker instead of just joke, because even though 95% of you guys knew what I meant and we just continued conversation, there were still a few who heard that one thing and just completely got lost from the whole concept and the theory. So for that reason, I fixed the audio so that my reflections of the Joker theory does not get lost in translation. But leave all your thoughts and theories down in the comments below, and we'll do it again in the next one. Alright, later.